So recently we've been learning about this vocabulary that you see here. For example, the verb se réveiller, right? All these verbs, they're technically called reflexive verbs, les verbes réfléchis. In class, just so we're not using grammar words that aren't really that important, I tend to call them the se verbs, right? All the verbs have se. All of our vocab we've been doing recently are all these verbs have that se before them. Se réveiller, se laver, se raser, se maquiller, se brosser, all of those. They're really easy to form because notice that they all have ER on the end of them. That means you already know how to form the half of it, right? It's just like parler, chanter, manger. Take off the ER, add the same endings that you do for all those. The only new thing we have to figure out is what do we do with this se? It's going to change depending on who's doing the action, right? So these reflexive verbs like verbe réfléchir. Let's use se réveiller as our example. Je me réveille. So we know that with je, the verb always ends with an E, right? Because it's an ER verb. What do we do with the se? We change it to me to match with je. Je me réveille. And don't forget our pronunciation, right? We've been practicing the vocab so far just as vocab, right? So all the verbs just had an ER on them when we said to wake up, to brush your teeth, se réveiller, se brosser les dents. So we pronounce the endings. Now we're conjugating them, right? So silent endings. Je me réveille. Tu te réveilles. Again, we're used to tu. What's the ending? Es. What happened to the se? Changed to te. Tu te réveilles. Il se réveille or elle se réveille. Again, E is the ending that matches with il and elle. And se, what happened to it? It actually stays se here with il. Nous réveillons. Yes, you're going to repeat nous. It's actually not repetitive because it's two different versions of nous. So what do we always have with nous for an ending? ONS. What happened to the se? It turned to nous. Nous réveillons. Vous vous réveillez. Yes, we're going to repeat vous also. So easy, we're used to that ending for vous. What happened to the se? It turned to vous. Vous vous réveillez. And il se réveille or elle se réveille. Remember that ENT is always silent. So je, tu, il, and il plural, they're all silent endings. Réveille. What happened to the se? It's also se. So the il and il plural both have se. Il se réveille. So what's the point of these? All those verbs we've been working on, se réveiller, se laver, se coucher, they're all things you do to yourself. I wake myself up. I brush my own hair. I put on makeup on myself. I do it to myself. So that's what we're doing here. I wake myself up. Okay, je me réveille. Some of these verbs, and a lot of these verbs we always use in this way because we usually do these things to each other, right? But sometimes you could do this to someone else. If your mom wakes you up and you don't wake yourself up, then the verb is actually going to just be réveiller and not se réveiller. Just so to say, my mom wakes me up, or my mom wakes my brother up. Let's do that. My mom wakes my brother up. Ma mère réveille mon frère. She's not waking herself up. My mom wakes herself up. Ma mère se réveille. My mom wakes up my brother. Ma mère réveille mon frère. So these are all when you're doing them to yourself, or in the case of nous, we wake each other up in the sense of we both each wake our own self up. Okay? So let's go back and review. What do we do with je? Me. When would it be M apostrophe instead of me? If the verb that's here starts with a vowel sound, right? What verb have we seen in our list that has a vowel sound? Habiller, right? Because it starts with an H. So don't forget that since we don't pronounce the H, the word actually starts with a vowel sound. So I get dressed, je m'habille. We're going to make a nice connection there. Not je me habille, but je m'habille. Tu, te, or te apostrophe for the vowel sound again, right? Il, elle, or on, se, or s apostrophe is exactly what we just saw on the last slide. We're just reviewing what they go with. Every time it's nous, that se changes to nous. Vous, and il or elle plural, se, or again, s apostrophe. So here are the verbs that you've been working with from your vocab, right? So we should all obviously be practicing what these mean because we can't just walk around randomly conjugating verbs and not know what we're saying. We want to be able to put them into context. There, you'll notice that there is an asterisk next to a couple of them. And also notice most of these are verbs that have to do with our daily routine, right? We've been talking about getting up and all of that. Se promener and se lever. It's not a big deal for writing because when you communicate and you're just talking, you're not going to, notice the difference. You're still going to understand people. Even if you left out the accent, you're still going to know what people said. But technically, se lever and se promener, you have to put an accent grave on the E in all the forms except for nous and vous. So we'll see that, we'll correct it. I'm not going to make a big deal of it on tests. We're only in French too, but just so we know. So remember that all these verbs here, before we conjugate them, we can pronounce the ending, right? We're just practicing them as vocab. Se réveiller, se reposer, se maquiller, se peigner, se raser, se doucher. As soon as we conjugate, we've got to change the ending, right? So take a second here. You can even pause your screen so you can do these before the answers come up. And try to fill in the blanks. So I've already conjugated the verbs for you. You're putting what goes in those blanks. What are your choices for what goes in the blanks? Me, te, se, nous, or vous. So if you haven't paused the screen yet, do that. Work on this. Okay, so hopefully you've unpaused now. We're going to check our answers. Nous levons. How did you get to that? We saw the ending was already ONS, so we know that, and we see that this is nous. So what goes with nous? Nous. So we knew the verb was se lever. What do we change the se to when it's nous? Nous. Paul se douche. With Paul, that's the il form, so the se stays se. Mes parents se lavent. Mes parents is il plural, right? And the se is also se there. Barbara and Melody s'habillent. Two people, both girls, so this is elle plural, so this it's se, but why is it S apostrophe? Because H is a vowel sound, right? Because it's silent. S'habillent, nice one sound. Tu t'habilles. It's tu, so what does the se change to? Te, and in this case T apostrophe, because we have the vowel sound again. Tu t'habilles. Vous vous douchez. What does the se change to with vous? Vous. And et moi, je me lève aussi. What happens to the se with je me lève aussi. So now that we practiced the forms a little bit, let's talk about what would you do if you actually wanted to say these things. I get up. She washes herself. You shave. He brushes his teeth. The she washes herself, I realize, a little bit weird in English, where you say more like, oh, she's washing her face, she's washing her hands, she's going to shower, right? The idea, like I said, for all of these is you're doing something yourself. So again, take a minute, more likely, pause this, and look back at the rest of your notes and see, okay, how would I put this whole sentence together? First, I need the vocabulary for the verb to get up. Then I need to think about, okay, what form am I going to use? Se, te, me, nous, vous. And then what's the ending of the verb going to be? So if you haven't paused it yet, pause it now. Okay, so now hopefully you've unpaused the video. Let's see how you did. I get up. What's the verb for to get up? Se lever. So we had to conjugate se lever with je, so we've taken off the R and left the E. If you didn't get the accent, don't worry about that, but that's one of the verbs we said we need the accent on. And then se lever, we had to change the se to me to match with je. She washes herself. What's the verb for to wash? Se laver. It's with she, so we need elle. Make the verb match with elle, and then what goes with elle? Se, elle se lave. You shave. What's the verb for to shave? Se raser. We need to start with tu for you. Oops. Tu te rases. What's the ending for two verbs? Yes. What happens to the se in se raser for tu? It comes to tu te rases. Brushes his teeth. What's the verb? Se brosser. Se brosser les dents. With il. So il se brosse les dents. Okay. What about the negative? What two words do we always need to make the negative? Ne and pas, right? Where have we learned always that we put them in the sentence? Around the verb. We have one extra piece here now, though, because we've got these me, te, se words. So we're going to do what we've always done. Put the ne, pas around the verb. The only new thing is these words here, me, te, se, etc., have to be the closest thing to the verb. So you're going to put your je, tu, il, nous, vous, il, then ne, then the me, te, se, nous, vous, se, then the verb, then the pas. So you can see that the ne pas is still around the verb, but that me te part is closest. So here are your examples. Je ne me lave pas. Ne pas around the verb, closest thing me. Tu ne te couches pas. Nous ne nous réveillons pas. Vous ne vous brossez pas les dents. If there's extra something like on brushing your teeth, that the teeth part is not part of the verb, it's always at the end, after the pas. So you have vous ne vous brossez pas. You've got the ne pas around the verb. That other information, the teeth, is after. And that's all for today.